Let's welcome Ms. Shannan to the stage.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Drew. Thanks, everybody. Give yourselves another round of applause for being up this early. I told Travis, our videographer, that I would move this around here, just so it's not ruining your shot. Does that look better, Travis? The assignment was followed. Hi, everybody. Very happy to meet all of you. I know normally we get a little bit more time to meet individually, so you can always find me. You see us at Miss Shannon's there. It's also good to see some familiar faces in here. Full disclosure, I was not familiar with Creative Mornings before Jayton suggested me to Drew, and then Drew and I had this wonderful conversation. And what I thought was interesting about it is that it really just gives you an understanding of how much you can go a little deeper even in your own personal circle, because I agreed to do this, and they started saying I was going to be here, and then a bunch of friends in my circle were like, oh my gosh, I love Creative Mornings. I'm so glad you're gonna be there. And I'm like, I hadn't even heard of it, because this is normally getting my kid off to school time. So the universe can put other things into your view that you didn't even know were there, and you actually needed to be part of that community. So thank you again for having me be here this morning. Thank you to the familiar faces and the new ones. And shout out again to my friend Julie DeRose, who has her birthday this morning. So I don't have to do it on social media now. I did not know I was going to tell you to your face. One of the things I think most is interesting is that you can see that variety of things that I get to list off if you go to my LinkedIn page or go to my website, because that's how you want to get booked as a creative, is you have to figure out what you do. And normally you go, hey, I need a particular bucket, and that's how the algorithm's going to find me so that I can get more work. And that was something that I did for a really long time. It was something that I'm like, here's going to be my methodology. And then I'm going to share with you the evolution of how I got to the point of where I am now, where it's a variety of things that make up who I am. And I also want to give you license to think about the variety of things that make you up, not only as a creative, but as a human being. So if you look at my website, here's one of the things I get to say. And you know, whenever you're sitting there, and especially here in the Midwest, they're like, oh, I'm so bad at writing my bio and it's so hard. But I was pretty proud that I managed to distill it to this and find some things that are important to me and what I was going to do, and focus on some things that might be a little bit different than what you would think a professional speaker would be, and what you think somebody that talked on diversity would be, and what you think somebody who's a TV or a radio host would be, and to figure out a way to encapsulate it into something that could be a distillable bio, and figure out how I can go out there and support the conversation, which is really the reason that you book me, is because I'm a vibe. And that's it. And it's hard to explain that to professional organizations like United Health Group. Oh, there's lots of MCs that are out there, but you're booking me because it's a vibe. Because all of us MCs, as professional MCs, we have a vibe. So it's whatever vibe vibes with your vibe. And that's what you do. And so I'm like, here's a good way of me to be able to complete the assignment of explaining what kind of vibe I am. And then what we always have to do is go back to, how did you get to where you are now? So we all can look back and remember what happened in 2020. But I'll be honest with you, if you talked to me the first 3 months of 2020, I was crushing it. My calendar, I was very blessed to have a full calendar. I was very proud of how much I had on my calendar and what I was going to do. And I was like, this is going to be the year. And I actually had the first time that I was doing a gig out of state in a long time. And another organization that I was able to partner with, the Las Cruces International Film Festival, with, again, my friend Jayton had hooked me up with. They flew me in to go there, and I was going to MC their film festival and do some of the similar work that I do with our film festival. And that was cool. So on March 6th, I was in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and I was hanging out and doing this film festival and taking pictures with people, and we were up on each other. We were so close to one another, total strangers, just hugging and taking selfies and doing all of this stuff. But then we remember what happened by the time I got back, and we remember how 2020 started. And then we remember how it ended, right? And there was a point in 2020, another project that I was really proud of is that I had received a Minnesota State's Arts Board grant to produce a series that was going to be called Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos. And what it originally was pitched as, it was a community cultural partnership program with my friend Roxanne Battle, and she and I were going to put this together. And it was originally going to be 3 live stage shows of stand-up and storytelling at the New Hope Cinema Grill that we were going to film and then rebroadcast as a documentary with some interactive conversations with community organizers and other people talking about the subject matters that our performers performers were going to be performing about. And that's what we had planned. And then, before we could even get to those live performances, 2020 decided to 2020. So it was then making the decision of what are we going to do now, and since there was the ability, we already were going to have our digital component of this program, of this whole project, it was like, well, I guess what we'll do instead is we'll just pivot it all the way into a live streaming show. And one of the things that I'm most proud about with putting this together is that we wanted to use stand-up and storytelling to do something different, because a lot of times you'll hear comedy is the best medicine. That is a lie. Medicine is the best medicine. Science is real. If you don't like your doctor's answer, go get another doctor, talk to a holistic healthcare provider. Don't go to a comedy show if your knee hurts. I'm just saying. But what happens a lot when you end up discussing the concept of comedy as the best medicine is that that implies that what you need to do is be distracted from what it is that you are living through, going through, about to have happen to you. And so you want to go and you can laugh so you don't have to think about it. So that is one of the things that comedy can do. But what we wanted to do with Comedy Through the Chaos is that we wanted to also allow you to go, no, I can be part of a community of like-minded people because they're going through the same thing I am. And so a lot of the conversations that we had with Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos was about, hey, we could talk about addiction and recovery, we can talk about personal identity, and then we can use that to start conversations about other people that need to be able to hear that message as well. So we're very proud that that's what we got to do. The other thing that I was so proud about is that in the midst of the pandemic, thanks to our Minnesota State's Arts Board grant, is that when a lot of my creative friends and I were not, it was really, really impactful to have your whole calendar schedule. But thanks to that grant, I was able to actually pay people at least something to be able to do that, and we were able to stage these shows safely at the New Hope Cinema Grill. And we did a lot of things. We had to get creative like everybody else. We had to do some things outside. That's one of our storytellers, Greg. He's an amazing storyteller. You can see him at the Moth Story Slams pretty often. My friend Taylor, who's an award-winning executive producer, he was hanging out with us, and we still got to hang out and get these shows done. It was so fabulous to be able to still be in community, even though it was completely different, because trust me, as comedians, we love being in front of live audiences like this and being places like this. So to be able to do a show that wasn't completely virtual, even though it was just the crew and the performers at the New Hope Cinema Grill so that we could go ahead and social distance, it still felt really good. And this was our FOMO episode. I still have that wig. It's in fact, it's 2 wigs, because I learned from drag queens, and they're like, girl, you got a double wig. That's what you do. It takes a lot of wig to get rid of all of this, so it's all good. So I'd like to show you just a little amuse-bouche of what the Comedy Through the Chaos was as this 2020 iteration. Welcome to Comedy Through the Chaos. Welcome to this week's episode of Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos. Welcome to Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos. Welcome to Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos. Welcome to Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos. I'm Miss Shannan. Do you want me to slay? And in this episode, we're going to talk about addiction and recovery. And this time, because June is Pride Month, we're going to talk about pride. In this episode, we're going to take a look at mental health. This episode, we're going to talk about the fear of missing out, or FOMO.
And look, folks, we're done. I'm so excited. Look at how cute these little guys are. So today we're making red velvet Fontini into your marriage butt cake.
During the pandemic, it looks exactly the same from when it started. That took a lot of work.
So. Now here's Shannon's comedy friends.
Welcome to the dark side.
I was very clear. She's not in this episode, right? Bye.
Maybe we start breeding men smaller, like little chihuahuas.
As a young black girl growing up in Arizona, I also had a cowboy fetish, and sometimes that makes sense, because you figure if they're going to ride you and break your spirits, they should practice on some horses. Having a laugh can be therapeutic. It's okay to not check all the boxes, and it's okay to laugh about it. Regardless of how you choose to identify, we stand with you in being yourself. It's the comedy that helped them through the chaos in their lives. Sometimes it's okay to not be okay. With that, welcome to the show. Here we go. Thank you for indulging me. One of the things that always strikes me when I rewatch what we did in 2020 is you might be surprised to hear that that was the first time that I had a project that led with my name. That was Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos. You could see it on the logo. You heard me say it over and over and over again, and it still strikes me as odd because you get to hear me go, this is Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos. Welcome to the show. I'm Miss Shannan. Over and over and over again, and that was the first time. There were lots of times where it was the B96 morning show with Tony Fly and Miss Shannan. It's the Jason show with Miss Shannan. It's the something with Miss Shannan. And that was how the first 20 years of my career was. And so when we were figuring out what we were going to call Comedy Through the Chaos, I had my friend Roxanne, and she's like, this is your show. It needs to be Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos. And I felt weird, and I was like, no. And I started talking my partner out of putting my name on the project that I launched. And I was like, it doesn't feel right, and I didn't want to feel like a narcissist. It wasn't important, and that shouldn't be the thing. And she was adamant about it. And then, because I can't just listen to one partner, I called my friend. His name's Barsky. He's an executive producer, mostly out of LA. Very Leo energy, all of that energy. But worked on some shows, like Dirty Jobs. He worked on Bizarre Foods when they launched it. They worked on Mail Call, all these things. So I called him because obviously my brain just could not make this adjustment. I said, hey, I'm getting ready to launch this series that I had talked to you about. And so can you give me your advice? I have 3 suggestions for the name, and I want to get your opinion. And so I said, it's Miss Shannon's Comedy Through the Chaos. It's Comedy Through the Chaos with Miss Shannan, or only Comedy Through the Chaos. And he said, not the middle one. And I was like, okay. And he goes, why don't you want to put your name on it? Is it that weird lack of self-esteem thing I've been talking to you about? Because the balls of a white dude, that's it. I mean, if you want to run up on somebody, find a white dude that's in his 50s with Leo energy, and you will get all the answers. And I was like, well, yes, and so then once he snapped out of all of the Leo energy, it was also, well, every time I do a show, there's a reason why there's somebody's name on it. And he goes, and I don't live in that market anymore, but he did launch a lot of those shows here. And he goes, you're the one in the market that people would know for in this particular sector. So yes, your name needs to be on the show because that's how people will know what it is. And so I went, okay, and then I made that logo. And so if you ask me, why was it the first? And there's a variety of reasons where we don't step into our own spotlight, where we don't want to be the main person, even if we are the main person. You still figure out a way that there's somebody else that you need to showcase, or you want to make things so equally footed for everybody that's involved that you still don't give yourself all of the roses that you deserve. And I think we do that a lot as creatives, because there's a lot of ways to still frame the conversation that it is a partnership, that it is a group effort, that we all rise together, but still give yourself that opportunity to go, but this is what I'm doing in this project and how it shines. Because if you really look at the lion's share of the work in that project, I'm the one that made the pitch, I'm the one that ended up sending the information to the Minnesota State Arts Board, I'm the one that booked all of the guests and wrote all of the monologues, and I did that in conjunction with my other artistic friends. You can see, I could not have done all of this completely by myself. I needed my friend Taylor to come in as the supervising producer. I needed every one of the performers that were in the show to come there and be their best authentic self. But that being said, the show, the tone and the tenor and everything about that project is what I was bringing to the project. And I was the one that if this was going to get picked up again and it was going to be funded, it had to be me. So there's a reason why it's okay if you were in that conversation with yourself to go, yes, this is about me. And that's not in a bad way. Sometimes to be able to move forward, you're allowed to go, this will not happen if I don't continue to push. And if that's the situation that you are in your life, being able to say, I deserve to get the attention, because the better attention I get right now, the farther this project goes, and the more likely it is to succeed. And then if I succeed, because I'm a good person, I'm presuming that about everybody that's in here, because Drew seemed like he had good energy. If you're a terrible person, please raise your hand and leave now before I empower you. They're like, Miss Shannan said, now there's a supervillain. No. But because we are all fully forming human beings that are trying to figure out ways that we can hopefully support the other people that are in our communities, sometimes if you need to step forward so that you can go ahead and get all of the energy, if you can get the funding, if you can get the backing that you need, and that means that you have to be the one that steps boldly into the spotlight, you're allowed to do that. Because hopefully you'll be the kind of community partner that you will pass that down to the other people in the community. And that means, hey, I saw this person do that. Now there's funding available for the rest of us. I saw this person break through this ceiling. So that means that there's room for more of us to go into that space. And then everybody else, it's your job that once some of us pry that door open, you got to walk through there too. Because that door can easily slam behind us. There are people that are waiting to push that door closed. So I encourage you to keep walking while you can. So what I today want to give you is that first step, because it's not like it was easy for me to get to that point and come to that revelation. I had to practice, and then I had to talk to myself, and then I had to talk to myself again, and I had to make so that the negative self-talk side of my brain was easier to get shut down than the positive that side, like, no, you are a good person, you decide to be here. And so what I encourage you to do as your first step is to be very clear about your personal mission. And by that, I mean, a few years ago, back in 2018, we were talking to some friends, and they were like, okay, we're going to start doing our New Year's resolutions. I don't really New Year resolute. I don't do that. But what I would do is that was right after I had started my company, Miss Shannan Paul, as a company, and I was really trying to commit myself to putting as much energy into myself as a company as I had done for other people's company. I had a very corporate America background, or I was the promotions and marketing director for a major market radio station. I did all that, and I had put a lot of energy into other people's companies, and I'm like, the only way this is going to work is for you to put as much energy into yourself as a company as you had been doing for other people. And so I said, so you need a mission statement like I would do anytime back when I was working at Wells Fargo or anything else. So what I sat down and crafted as my personal mission statement is that I will use my art to care for my son and to make the lives of other people better. I'll use my art to care for my son and make the lives of other people better. And I didn't know what that meant or what it would manifest when I drafted that personal mission statement. I just knew, well, what's my primary motivation in life? And that is my son. His name's Dominic. I call him Cyclone Kid. I used to call him the toddler tornado, but you got to evolve him like a Pokemon every once in a while. So that's what I did. So I ended up, he is my North Star. He is the primary thing that if I don't do what would be required to make sure that he thrives, that would be something that I would go, okay, I feel like I did not do everything that I could. He also happens to be an adorable 16-year-old now who is high supports on the autism spectrum. And so our adventures are not everybody's adventures, but they're adventures that are very important to me to be good at. So if I can figure out a way to still be fully formed as myself and then make sure that he is taken care of, but also use those talents to go back to what we started with is, yes, comedy can be medicine. So there are things that I can do to make sure that the other human beings that I interact with on a daily basis come away feeling better after I talk to them. Is there a way that I can provide information or a resource to make sure that people come away feeling better? And as weird as that sounds, that's how I ended up being a benefit auctioneer. Is that if you go back to the 5 primary things that if you see in my email signature, it says Miss Shannan is a comedian, she's a corporate speaker, she's a voice actor, she's an event MC, she's a benefit auctioneer. I was a comedian first. And then I started going, okay, what am I gonna do that's an adjacent thing to that I can still use this keynote? I use this, so I built a keynote. And so that was the next adjacency that I did. Then it's like, okay, you're a voice actor. I have always been an actor, but I don't do as much. I shout out to everybody, all of my friends that are here at the Jungle Theater, because my friend Charlotte Marie Bailey was here recently, and so I appreciate everything that they do. I don't have the time right now to put into that, but I'm like, I still want to act, and so that's where my voice acting came from. So it's an adjacency that I did. And then I was already hosting a lot of events and tried to like tailor and focus what kind of vibes I present so that the right clients would find me, and I would do that as well. And then once I was doing a lot of those fundraisers, one of my friends, who is a benefit auctioneer, was like, Shannan, you're already here and you're doing this, and if you go and get your benefit auctioneer license, you could support some of these organizations even better. And the other thing that he brought up, he goes, because there's not as many women, and I didn't find this out, there's less than 10 certified black women as benefit auctioneers in the country. I was number 6. And so to be able to, again, show up and show out for a variety of organizations where representation matters, and trying to show there and being able to authentically help share their story while they're doing their fundraising has been something I'm really proud that that's something I get to help organizations do. So again, I'll use my art to care for my son and make the lives of other people better. And I didn't know all those things were going to line up, and that was going to be the kind of opportunities that I would be presented with from God, the universe, and spirits when I started that mission. So what can you do to set your own personal mission statement? How can you look inside to be able to go, here's what I'm going to present, and put it out there so that then things can begin to align so that I can get this mission statement accomplished? And that is, I think, one of the things I'd like to share often when I'm talking to creatives and solopreneurs and small business owners, that there's going to be a lot of hurdles that you have to deal with. But if you are very clear on what your personal mission statement is, then it can assist you in going, you know what, this is what I'm doing on a Thursday night to get to that goal. And it doesn't have to be monetary. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to have this many clients. It doesn't have to be anything that's data-driven. Sometimes it needs to go back to what I started with. It needs to be a vibe. So if you can figure that out for yourself, and I encourage you to do like any other business would do, make sure you write it down. Make sure you put it up in your house. Make sure you print it off and you put it in your car. Make it the screensaver on your phone for a while if that's what you need to do to make sure that you go ahead and you double down on yourself and what your personal vision and mission is, so that it'll help you make those decisions. When somebody offers you a gig, you can go, you know what, is this taking me towards that, or is it taking me away? Because the one resource that we can't come back up with is time. And especially when we're working for ourselves, there's so many things that we end up putting on pause and trying to decide, is this going to get where we're going? If you know clearly what your personal mission is, it makes those answers a lot easier. And you're going to have to get, again, it wasn't like I was always good at that. It was practice of what I've done, where I'm like, does this feel right? This feels like an opportunity. Somebody asked me to do something, but does it align with what my values are, what my mission is? And you can go, all right, maybe it doesn't. So it's a great opportunity, but it's not the right opportunity for me. So we finished our first season of Comedy Through the Chaos in 2020. And then what I did is I put it on pause. I put the project on pause because I was waiting to see, well, how am I going to fund this next? What do I want it to do as this next iteration? And I sat on it. And then earlier this year, I got a call from Crooner Supper Club. And they was like, hey, we know you do a lot of great work here in the Twin Cities, and we're starting to build up a variety of different shows. And if you're not familiar with Crooner Supper Club, they say they're in Minneapolis. They're in Fridley. It's a lie. For everybody outside of Minnesota, they're in Minneapolis. But so am I, and I live in Crystal, but I don't tell people outside of... I'm in Westopolis now. We rebranded. But they said, we'd love to offer you a residency. And they're like, we'd like for you to do like a showcase. It'll be Miss Shannan and Friends, and you could have people come and perform. And I said, you know what, thank you very much for the opportunity. I would love to perform there. I think you do great work. But I'm not really interested in doing Miss Shannan and Friends. That gets done a lot. There's a lot of showcases in town that are that. I said, but what I am interested is, I'm like, by the way, I had a series in 2020 that I've been looking for a home for. And it's called Miss Shannan's Comedy Through the Chaos. And so I showed him that video that you saw, and I talked to him about how I had been in the talks with Fox 9 and some other streaming broadcasters, and trying to figure out how we would film this, where we would film it, what we would do with it. And Crooner said yes. So we started in March. We do live shows there every other month. We've been renewed for 2025. And so I relaunched it with a slight update in this wonderful venue that aligns with what it is that I want Miss Shannan's Comedy Through the Chaos. And one of the biggest changes that when they asked me to do it, it wasn't, well, maybe I'll call it something else. I'm like, I have a project that's called Miss Shannan's Comedy Through the Chaos, and here's what it is, and here's what I do, and here's what it's about, and here's where it's going. And so we've had a great time. There's some photos from our most recent one that we did. We have one coming up in November. But being able just to see all of my friends and have a good time and showcasing what we're doing and know clearly where this will probably go next. And I had to add in that should, because I know who I'm pitching it to, but I can't guarantee their response as much as I would like to just mind meld into them and go, you're going to respond correctly. But we can't. So this is a little taste of what we get to do now.
Well, is it on? This is Myrtle Hansen, and I'm reminding you about the show at Crooners, the Supper Club, this Saturday, July 13th, for Comedy Through the Chaos, a show hosted by Shannan Paul. She's on the radio, you know, My Talk, something. And she's gonna have storytellers and comedians for a night of entertainment. I hope it's not gonna be filthy. Where do I look on here? Well, anyway, it's at 6:30. You can have dinner, and it's, I hope the meat's not hard and dry. And Todd J will be there, and I want to go and make sure he doesn't do me in his act.
Thank you, Myrtle. She is our biggest fan. We appreciate her. So to leave you with a tangible thing, if you have not already come up with a personal mission, I encourage you to do that. And if you need a friend to help you workshop it, you can see all my information here. I'm always happy to go, hey, let's do a virtual coffee date, and maybe here's some questions I can ping off of you that you hadn't thought of. If you have a personal mission and you forgot about it, maybe it's time to dust it off. See how many cobwebs you've allowed to grow on it and take it back out and figure out a way to shine it up so you can start moving forward. If you have somebody in your life that you know what their personal mission is, if you're that person that keeps poking holes in their boats, please stop that. There's plenty of people to poke holes in boats. You don't need to be one of those people. That's a long line of people. But I do encourage you to figure out what this means for you, and then not always going, it's too big of a goal. Not always going, it's too big of a mission. It's I'm too small to actually accomplish that. Think big and think bold and think broadly. And then figure out how that makes sense for you as you move forward. So that is the formal part of my presentation. Do we have time to do some questions? And Drew, I wasn't timing. Where are we? Hey, so thank you guys. Good morning, everybody.